What's up guys, it's your boy Aegis B and I'm back with another video on the 2019 MacBook Pro. Before I get into the review or the 6 months later review, I just want to remind you guys to like the video, also subscribe and leave a comment below. This will help more people see my videos and I would really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Cue the intro. So the 2019 MacBook Pro came out in July 2019 and it's received a lot of positive reviews when it came out. It's now been about 6 months since the launch and you may be wondering how well has it held up. So you're going to check out the rest of this review to see my thoughts on it 6 months later. When this device came out, I literally just bought a Retina MacBook Air after ditching the Mac for Windows. I decided that I didn't want to continue making videos without Final Cut Pro and I needed to come back. So at that time, only the Retina MacBook Air was available, so I just went with that. But in July, Apple released this bad boy, and this is the 2019 13-inch MacBook Pro. So let's talk about what you get when you buy the specific model that I have here. So you get a 13.3-inch LED display that has 2560 by 1600 resolution at a pixel per inch density of 2.7. The display has 500 nits brightness. It has a True Tone technology and wide color gamut. It has 1.4 gigs of quad-core Intel Core 5 i5, and it turbo boosts up to 3.9 gigahertz. It has 256 gigs of storage. It has 8 gigs of RAM. It has the Intel Iris Plus graphics. It has 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB ports, which are right here. It has a trackpad that supports multi-touch and gestures, a 720p FaceTime HD camera. It has up to 10 hours of battery life, and it's all at 3.02 pounds, so it's actually very light. It also comes with a USB-C power adapter. That's a 61 watt adapter, and it has a USB-C charging cable in the box as well. Since I already did do a review of this bad boy 6 months ago, I won't need to go too deep into what I like about this, but I can say that this thing has held up well in the past 6 months. Moving on to the keyboard, Apple has updated this keyboard, and it's most likely due to the outrage from Apple users that really hated the butterfly keyboard mechanism. My last MacBook before this was actually the 2014 MacBook Pro, and I feel like it had a great keyboard until I spilt water all over it and damaged my computer, so I had to go to another computer, and at that point I went to Windows. But I skipped the butterfly keyboard that people complained about, and now I have this different kind of keyboard. So apparently Apple has fixed the issue by adding an extra membrane under this keyboard to prevent dust and debris from causing malfunctions. But in my experience, 6 months later, it's not failed on me, and I do not find keys sticking at all. Has it been fixed? That's yet to be determined. There's still a lot of time left, but in 6 months it actually has not given me any issues with this keyboard. On to more positive things, I do like the feeling of the keyboard, and I can usually type out things with ease. I do prefer the style of the 2014 keyboard, but I can do just fine with this keyboard here. It's wide enough for the size of my hands, and I never feel really cramped up while typing out content on these. So moving on to the touch bar here, to be honest, after 6 months, I never ever use it. I really just use it to change the volume and stuff like that. It's just one of those things that you do not need, but it's fun to have. As I said, I only really use it for changing the volume and like the brightness of the display, but that's really it. It does have its purposes, like editing videos and scrubbing through YouTube, but I can say, however, I'd rather have it than not have it. Maybe my usage habits will change and I'm going to start using these a bit more. Okay, so with the 1.4 gig quad-core processor, this thing crushes most tasks. I almost never experience slowdown when doing basic things. Is it the computer for the gamer? Absolutely not. However, if you're a semi-professional, this would be the one for most users that need the Apple's ecosystem or just wants a device that works well for the most part, and it can handle most tasks. Editing photos in Lightroom, which I do quite often, is a breeze, and Lightroom does not lag on this computer. That being said, there are slowdowns on this computer, like when I'm editing 4K videos in Final Cut Pro. And for the most part, the only thing that fixes it would be to force quit Final Cut Pro. Is that a problem with Final Cut or the MacBook? I don't really know yet, but pretty much I like that Final Cut and the MacBook picks up right where I left off and right where I quit in the project. So the fans on this thing actually gets pretty loud when running intensive tasks, you know, Final Cut or just Photoshop, and it's a bit worrisome at first, but you know, 6 months later, I have no fear of my computer crashing and burning into a ball of flames. If you're a professional video editor, then you can get by, but you would want to get a different model than I did. You would need to get something more than 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, because that is not going to cut it. You can always plug in an external GPU if that's what you want, but this computer is still plenty powerful compared to last year's MacBook Pro with the touch bar, you know, the one with the better specs. Let's talk about battery life. So the battery life on this thing lasts pretty long when you're doing most things. I certainly don't charge it every day, and I get around 7 to 10 hours depending on my regular usage. So if I'm cutting up videos in Final Cut and, you know, browsing the web, I can expect about 5 to 6 hours if I'm doing, you know, those more intensive tasks. But to keep it honest, when I'm using Final Cut Pro, I just tend to, you know, keep it plugged in while I'm using Final Cut. So you can certainly leave the house without your charger if you're going to use this for light tasks such as studying, shopping, and watching YouTube. But if you're editing in a Starbucks, you might want to bring your charger to go along with your iced caramel macchiato. So let's talk about some of the design and the ports. So the design of this computer is honestly just beautiful. I mean, it's from Apple, so you know what to expect. And I believe that Apple is like leading, you know, the class in terms of designing technology. And I mean, for MacBooks or computers in general, I believe that Apple is, you know, setting the bar. Asus is doing some pretty good things, but I believe Apple, you know, sets the bar with the computers, as I mentioned. The MacBook Pro, it is pretty sleek. Space gray color looks pretty excellent, and it's an overall sophisticated looking piece of hardware. Problem with this thing after 6 months isn't that it's just got ugly all of a sudden, but my problem with the design after 6 months is Apple's obsession with going sleeker and sleeker. It's causing us to lose ports. So there's only 2 of these ports and no other ports anywhere else on the device, which sucks because, of course, I hate dongles. So think about it. If you're charging your device and you have it plugged into here, you only have space for the one, and you're going to need to put something else in there, but then, you know, you can't really use it for anything else. So it kind of sucks. I wish Apple would have just stuck another port on the other side of this model, but they've reserved that for the more expensive MacBook Pro that they released last year. So when Apple removed the CD drive, I was game. And when they removed the USB port, I was also game. But please give us more USB-C ports until we're used to the transition. Please, Apple. Oh, and the SD card, it really needs to make a comeback. Please. Please. In sum, the design of this MacBook Pro is what we expect, but it's still beautiful and premium looking. Other things that are still great after 6 months that I'm not going to go into detail about is that the speakers are loud, the computer is not much heavier than the MacBook Air. As mentioned, the design is still pretty sleek and modern, and it just looks better than the 16-inch version in my honest opinion. So if you're one of those people that are thinking about, you know, picking up the 2019 MacBook Pro or the iPad, any of the iPads, there's a couple of things that you might be thinking about. So the iPad is a bit more portable than obviously this guy, but they are pretty, you know, sleek. In general, they're both very light, but of course, you know, nothing beats the portability of an iPad. The display, obviously, on this guy is a bit better, so you do want to go for this if you were doing, you know, big tasks that require a larger screen. You're going to want to go with the 2019 MacBook Pro. iPad is good for content consumption, so if you're somebody that does not do any killer tasks and only wants a computer for browsing, you might want to go with the iPad because of what the iPad offers in such a small package. If you're balling like that, go ahead and buy both. So now that we've had time to let the 13-inch MacBook Pro cook for 6 months, you might be wondering, is it everything that we thought it would be? And the answer is absolutely. And I would highly recommend this as the MacBook device to buy in 2020. I mean, the 16-inch is great and all, but it may be overkill for most users. I would even suggest buying the MacBook Pro over the 2019 MacBook Air because of the better specs, and honestly, it's not that much lighter or that much thicker. I enjoy using this device, although the 2019 iPad Air has become my prime content consumption device, and I think that if you're a student, a photographer, a shopping addict, a video editor, a chef maybe, you should still get this because this is the device for most people, and if you consider the price and what you get, I mean, it's really a steal. So that would be it, guys. That's my thoughts on the MacBook Pro 6 months later. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, go ahead, give it a thumbs down. Make sure you subscribe though, and again, Happy New Year. Peace.